What if I told you right now that everything you believed watching modern masters of espionage and Hollywood ninjas is just child's play? Are you ready to learn the shocking truth about the unmatched, almost mystical mastery of stealth that the true masters of the Great Plains possess to perfection? Today, elite special forces use thermal imaging, night vision devices, and high-tech gear. But hundreds of years ago, the Comanche turned nighttime infiltration of heavily guarded enemy camps into a deadly art form. For them, this was not mere theft, but the ultimate contest of incredible agility and absolutely silent movement, where the slightest mistake meant a painful death. Their methods of working with shifting winds, icy river currents, and thick nighttime shadows remain unmatched to this day. Gold standards of camouflage that cannot be replicated without years of training. Be sure to watch this video all the way to the very last second, because today we're breaking down the anatomy of the perfect night raid. You'll learn how these elusive ghosts of the prairie manage to steal the best, most sensitive steeds right from under the noses of heavily armed and highly vigilant guards. And as we near the end, I'll tell you about that legendary trick where a warrior untied his beloved horse right from the wrist of a sleeping enemy, so smoothly that the enemy didn't even miss a beat in his breathing. Hit that like button now, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we'll vanish into the night shadows of the Great Plains. A secret passed down from generation to generation reveals the true essence of their nighttime forays. Penetrating enemy territory was considered not merely a necessity, but an incredibly prestigious contest. The Comanche viewed this complex process as the ultimate test of their agility, wit, and composure. Successful completion of the mission earned the participants immense respect and permanently cemented their high social status. Masters of their craft spent years honing every movement to achieve absolute and infallible perfection. Preparation for such an operation always began with a lengthy and meticulous study of the terrain. Experienced scouts spent many days in secure hiding places, memorizing every path and every hill. They meticulously recorded the times of guard changes and the specific layout of objects in the camp. This gathered information became a solid foundation for the detailed planning of the future silent infiltration. Any error in the initial calculations could cost the entire group the valuable element of surprise. Discipline within the group was built on complete trust and understanding, without a single sound. Communication took place through barely perceptible gestures that were invisible to outsiders. Each member knew exactly their role and position at any given moment. This coordinated interaction allowed the group to move as a single, completely invisible organism. Such coordination was achieved only after many months of joint training on their own territory. Equipment for night operations was always minimal and completely silent during any movement. The warriors left behind in camp any items capable of making an accidental clang or creak. Clothing fit snugly against the body and did not snag on shrub branches. Footwear was made from the softest leather, ensuring perfect traction on any surface. Such meticulous preparation eliminated any chance of mishaps during the approach to enemy territory. The choice of time to begin the march depended on a multitude of natural and weather factors. Preference was given to moonless nights with thick cloud cover and the steady rustling of the wind in the grass. Darkness served as the most reliable cover, concealing the silhouettes of people against the backdrop of the plain. Weather conditions became a full-fledged ally, rather than an obstacle to carrying out the difficult task. The Comanches knew how to wait for the perfect moment, displaying incredible patience and cold calculation. Waiting at the edge of the camp could last for hours without the slightest change in posture. The warriors blended into the ground, completely controlling their breathing and heartbeats. They listened intently to the rhythm of life in the settlement, identifying the most vulnerable points along the perimeter. This stage required tremendous inner calm and a complete absence of haste. Only after ensuring safety would the group commander give a silent signal to begin the advance. Breaking through the outer security perimeter was always executed with surgical and precise accuracy. Masters of stealth found blind spots between the sentries' positions and used them to enter. They moved in short bursts, freezing at the slightest change in their surroundings. Every shadow cast by a tent or a wagon became a temporary shelter along their path. This fluid dance with the shadows left the guards no chance of detection. Upon reaching the center of the camp, the group split up to carry out their individual tasks. Each moved toward a predetermined target, maintaining complete control over the situation. The space inside the settlement was filled with various objects that required the utmost caution when navigating. Any careless touch of a tripwire or an object could ruin the entire plan. Therefore, their speed was reduced to a minimum in the interest of absolute and flawless safety. The success of the entire operation often depended on the ability to adapt instantly to new conditions. If a guard suddenly changed his route, a warrior had to immediately find new cover. This ability to make the right decisions in a split second set the true masters apart. They didn't panic, but simply blended into their surroundings, waiting for the right moment to continue. Such flexibility of thought made their tactics incredibly effective and unpredictable. Completing the first phase of the infiltration meant they were ready for the most critical stage of the operation. The warriors took up their starting positions near their primary target, waiting for the right moment. The tension was at its peak, but outwardly they remained completely calm and composed. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this level of psychological preparation? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies in their genius ability to read air currents. The wind on the Great Plains has always been the most reliable ally for those who knew how to use it. The Comanche never set out toward their destination without first determining the exact direction of the air currents. They knew that a person's scent could be carried by the wind over vast distances. Therefore, their approach to the camp was always, without exception, strictly against the wind. The direction of the wind was determined using a variety of different and highly accurate methods. Warriors would toss dry dust or light fluff from local plants into the air. They would carefully observe how the tops of tall grass swayed on the horizon. Even a faint breeze, barely perceptible on the skin of their faces, provided them with all the necessary information. This habit of monitoring air currents had been honed to absolute automaticity. Moving against the wind solved several critically important camouflage tasks at once. First, it completely ruled out the possibility of the group being detected prematurely by human scent. The camp guards and their alert horses remained unaware until the very last moment. Second, the headwind carried back any accidental sounds made by their footsteps. The wind literally carried the noise away from the ears of the vigilant sentries, creating a sound vacuum ahead. The sound of the wind itself was also used as a powerful tool for natural sound camouflage. The rustling of dry grass and the creaking of trees reliably concealed the footsteps of the creeping men. The stronger the gusts, the faster and bolder the group could move. The Comanches knew how to synchronize their dashes with the strongest gusts of wind. During brief lulls, they froze instantly, turning into motionless statues. Understanding the aerodynamics of the camp was another crucial element of a successful infiltration. Tents and other structures created turbulence and altered the direction of local air currents. Experienced masters knew how to predict how the air would behave between obstacles. They plotted their routes so as to always remain in the zone of proper airflow. This required superb spatial awareness and vast practical experience. Sometimes the wind would suddenly change direction right in the middle of an operation. In such cases, the team would immediately stop moving and lie down on the ground. They assessed the new situation and quickly adjusted their original approach route. The ability to adapt to the whims of nature was key to survival on such raids. No plan was set in stone if natural conditions demanded urgent changes. The warriors also tried to minimize their own scent before each sortie. They did not build smoky fires and avoided fragrant herbs the day before the operation. They often rubbed their bodies with local clay or mud from a nearby body of water. This not only masked their natural scent, but also helped them blend in with the color of the soil. Such comprehensive work with scents made them virtually invisible to any nose. Using the wind also helped conceal the visual traces of their movement. The oncoming breeze pressed the grass down in one direction, helping to hide the imprints of their soft moccasins. As the warriors moved against the bent stalks, the grass quickly returned to its original position. This natural mechanism of vegetation self-repair acted as a perfect eraser for their tracks. The plan was for nature itself to erase any evidence of their presence. The wind on the plains rarely died down completely, making this tactic universally effective. At night, the air currents became denser and more steady, creating the perfect backdrop. The Comanche saw this as a gift from nature that simply needed to be used skillfully. They moved through the night like invisible ghosts, guided by invisible air trails. Their understanding of the elements surpassed all known strategies of that historical period. As they approached their target, the warriors began to move with even greater caution and vigilance. The wind had already done its job, concealing their presence on the approaches to the target. Now was the moment to employ entirely different, more subtle skills. Every subsequent action required precision and complete calm. In the next chapter, you will learn exactly how they establish silent contact with their primary target. What the experts don't talk about lies in a unique method for calming strangers' horses. It was impossible to lead the best racehorses away from enemy territory without establishing complete trust. The Comanches knew that any sudden movement would cause panic and rouse the entire camp. Therefore, their approach to the animals was based on absolute calm and gentleness. They moved so smoothly that the horse didn't even have time to be frightened by the stranger. The first stage of contact consisted of slowly and rhythmically closing the distance. The warrior moved while crouching low, avoiding direct eye contact, which might have seemed threatening. His breathing was steady, deep, and perfectly in sync with the horse's own breathing rhythm. This synchronization at the level of biological rhythms helped create an atmosphere of complete safety. The animal began to perceive the approaching person as a natural part of the nighttime landscape. Upon reaching arm's length, the warrior did not rush to touch his target. He allowed the horse to smell him first and grow accustomed to the new presence. His hand rose extremely slowly, without a single jerk, moving toward the neck or nose. The first touch was as light as an autumn leaf falling onto the water surface. Such a gentle introduction completely ruled out the possibility of a sudden neigh or a kick. The masters used special techniques of soothing stroking along specific lines. Hand movements strictly followed the direction of the hair growth, creating a relaxing effect. Light, monotonous scratching behind the ears or in the withers area was often used. This relieved any internal tension in the animal and evoked a feeling of absolute comfort. The horse relaxed and willingly came under the full control of the unseen guest. Special attention was paid to working with the ropes and tethers holding the horses. Knots were untied with both hands in the utmost care to avoid any squeaking from friction. Warriors studied the types of knots used by their neighbors in advance, so as not to waste time in the dark. The rope was released smoothly, without creating a sudden pull or jerk on the horse's neck. This moment was critical, as sudden freedom could provoke the animal into a sudden movement. To prevent accidental noises while moving, special restraint techniques were used. A warrior could gently cup the horse's muzzle with his hand, preventing it from making a loud sound. At the same time, he continued to convey his calmness through confident and steady movements. Sometimes a light cloth was draped over the horse's head to limit its field of vision. In the darkness, this helped the animal focus solely on the tactile cues from the person leading it. Leading the horse out of the camp was like a slow and mesmerizing nighttime dance. The warrior walked close to the horse's shoulder, setting the pace and direction with every step. They moved in step, skirting obstacles and people sleeping on the ground. Any acceleration or deceleration occurred in sync, as if they were a single entity. Such harmony allowed even the most stubborn steed to be guided through a tight ring of guards. Working with multiple targets simultaneously required even greater skill and concentration. A single experienced warrior could silently control 3 or 4 horses at once. He lined them up in a straight chain, transmitting commands through slight tugs on the reins. The animals followed him obediently, yielding to his hypnotic calm and confidence. From the outside, this process looked like a true magical ritual of subjugating the wild. Calming the horse was not merely a technical maneuver, but a profound psychological interaction. The Comanches sincerely believed in their connection with these noble creatures of the plains. They did not subdue the horse by force, but offered it their leadership and protection. The horses sensed this sincere attitude and responded with complete submission. Be sure to like this video if you were impressed by this incredible technique. The secret, which has only just been revealed, lies in their unique foot placement technique. Moving through a night camp littered with dry branches and stones required incredible control. A normal step would inevitably lead to a crunch or rustle, giving away the scout's position. The Comanche developed a method of rolling the foot that completely eliminated any accidental noise. This skill was developed from an early age and became a natural way of walking. With each step, the warrior first touched the ground only with the outer edge of the moccasin's toe. He gently probed the surface, checking for dangerous obstacles beneath the thin sole. If a dry branch was detected underfoot, the foot smoothly altered the trajectory of its movement. Only after ensuring the safety of the point of contact would the body's weight slowly shift forward. The heel would touch the ground last, completing the silent cycle. Such a stride required incredible strength and endurance in the leg and back muscles. Movement occurred with the knees slightly bent, which provided maximum shock absorption and balance. The center of gravity was always low and positioned directly over the supporting leg. This allowed him to freeze on one leg at any moment without losing his balance. This stance was exhausting, but it guaranteed complete silence with every movement. Particular attention was paid to choosing a route between the tents and the areas where people rested. The warriors preferred to move through areas with soft ground, avoiding rocky trails. They carefully bypassed areas with dry leaves or dense thickets of thorny shrubs. Every tectonic fold or depression in the ground was used to conceal their silhouette. The path was laid out so that they could always quickly hide behind the nearest obstacle. Synchronizing their movements with the sounds of the environment was another secret of their mastery. A step was taken precisely at the moment when a gust of wind stirred the treetops. If someone in the camp coughed or tossed and turned in their sleep, the warriors used that noise. The sound of their footsteps blended perfectly into the natural acoustics of the sleeping settlement. This auditory camouflage made them completely inaudible to the guards. The pace of leaving the camp was always as slow as when entering. Having obtained the desired loot, an inexperienced person might be tempted to flee quickly. The Comanches never made such a fatal mistake, maintaining an icy calm until the very end. They led the horses away just as smoothly, measuring every step on the return journey. They only began to pick up speed once the camp was hidden far beyond the horizon. Passing through the guard lines on the return trip required even greater caution. Now the warriors had to look out not only for themselves, but also for their spoils. They chose the widest gaps in the patrols to lead the animals through safely. If the guards shifted positions, the group could stand in the shadows for hours, waiting for a clear passage. Patience was always rewarded with a successful crossing of the final line of defense. Taking advantage of weather anomalies often helped conceal the moment of the final sortie. A sudden rain or low fog provided ideal cover for crossing open terrain. The sound of falling raindrops reliably drowned out the clatter of hooves on the damp, flat ground. Warriors perceived such gifts from the weather as a sign that their carefully calculated actions were correct. Nature itself closed the invisible door to the enemy camp behind them. This method of silent movement became the hallmark of the great masters of the plains. No other culture achieved such a level of integration with the environment. Their footsteps made no sound, and their silhouettes dissolved into the night air without a trace. It was a true triumph of intellect and composure over brute physical force. In the next chapter, you will learn how they left their signature mark right in the center of enemy territory. Leaving a distinctive mark after a successful infiltration was a matter of honor for every master. The Comanches never sought to simply take a trophy unnoticed and disappear into the darkness. They wanted to demonstrate their complete superiority over the security system of the enemy settlement. To do this, they deliberately left irrefutable evidence of their visit right on the spot. Such a bold gesture served as a powerful psychological message to all the inhabitants of the camp. The most common mark was a neatly cut end of a rope or a sturdy leather strap. The warrior did not untie the knot on the tether, but cleanly cut it off with a sharp knife. The piece of leather left on the stake was clear evidence of human work, not chance. The clean cut demonstrated confidence, composure, and a lack of fear of being caught. It was a direct challenge, left in the most conspicuous place to be discovered in the morning. Sometimes the craftsmen resorted to more sophisticated and creative ways to mark their presence. They might move certain household items near the tent of a sleeping chieftain or warrior. Stones arranged in a particular way, or a broken arrow stuck in the ground, spoke for themselves. These actions required extra time and created additional risk for the group. But pride and the desire for glory always outweighed any apprehensions and fears. This practice turned night raids into a sort of brutal but fair sporting contest. Opponents understood the language of these silent messages and assessed the skill level of the performer. Leaving a mark and leaving unnoticed was considered the highest feat in this dangerous discipline. It proved that the warrior had enough time and composure to perform unnecessary actions. The fame of such virtuosos quickly spread across all the plains. The reaction to discovering such marks in the morning was always the same in any camp. The owners felt a mixture of anger, disappointment, and involuntary respect for the skills of their nocturnal visitors. They understood that the enemy had been just a step away from them while they slept soundly. This realization of their own vulnerability dealt a severe blow to the morale of the entire community. In such cases, a psychological victory was no less important than material spoils. For the Comanches themselves, leaving marks was part of a complex system of personal prestige. Stories of these exploits became the main topics of conversation around the evening campfires. Young warriors listened to these stories, dreaming of repeating the success of their outstanding mentors. Tradition required every aspirant to glory to prove his courage through real and daring deeds. Without tangible evidence of his skill, words carried little weight. Each master's signature was unique, and experienced trackers could identify the specific performer. Some preferred to use specific knots on the scraps of sturdy leather rope they left behind. Others left specific notches on the wooden stakes to which the prey was tied. It was akin to an artist's signature on his finest and most valuable canvas. Individuality in this craft was valued just as highly as stealth itself. This game with danger required perfect timing and an assessment of all risks. One could only linger for the sake of a mark if completely certain of one's safety. If the situation in the camp became tense, the true skill lay in knowing when to abandon bravado. Common sense always had to guide the actions of even the most ambitious raid participants. The group's survival remained the absolute priority over any personal ambitions or glory. The tradition of leaving a mark vividly illustrates the mindset of the indigenous people of that historical period. War and conflict were not limited solely to the destruction of or infliction of material damage upon the enemy. It was a complex interweaving of honor, a demonstration of skill, and psychological domination over the enemy. The trail left in the night was a symbol of the spirit of the Great Plains, elusive and unconquered. This phenomenon is still studied today as a unique example of military psychology. What lay behind the beautiful picture of the river landscape was, in fact, an ideal escape route. For masters of stealth, water obstacles were not a hindrance, but the best tool for camouflage. They knew that flowing water instantly and irrevocably washed away any physical traces. Therefore, the return route was almost always planned to include crossing or utilizing the riverbed. This tactical maneuver nullified all efforts of even the most talented enemy trackers. Upon reaching the bank, the group did not rush to cross to the opposite side of the stream. The warriors and the horses they led carefully entered the water, trying not to splash. Then they began a slow advance directly along the riverbed, moving against the current. The water reliably muffled the sound of hooves and washed away the scent, driving their pursuers mad. This march through the water could continue for several miles to completely confuse the trail. Moving against the current was not a random choice, but based on a deep understanding of nature. Branches floating downstream or silt stirred up from the bottom could reveal the direction of their retreat. Moving upstream, they left the churning water behind them, concealing their direction of travel. Furthermore, such a route demanded great physical effort from the horses, reducing their inclination to make noise. The warriors carefully controlled every step the animals took across the slippery, rocky bottom. Choosing a place to exit the water was no less important than the movement itself. The Comanches never stepped onto a soft, sandy shore where their hooves would leave deep prints. They sought out areas with dense, rocky ground or wide, rocky outcrops right at the water's edge. If no such spot was available, they chose a shore thickly covered with tough, resilient grass. On such a surface, tracks would disappear in a matter of minutes, leaving no clues behind. Sometimes, to complicate matters for the pursuers, false exits onto the shore were used. A warrior might lead a single horse onto the sand, take a few steps, and then lead it back into the water. This technique created a clear false trail, leading the pursuit in a completely wrong direction. While the enemy was trying to solve this puzzle, the main group gained precious hours to retreat. Such tricks turned the pursuit into an exhausting and utterly pointless game of wits. Crossing deep sections of the river required special skill and complete trust between man and horse. The warriors dismounted and swam alongside their steeds, holding on to the animal's mane or neck. They helped them keep their heads above water and guided them to safe shallows. At these moments, complete silence reigned, broken only by the soft lapping of the river's waves. Even in the cold water, they did not allow themselves to betray their presence with a single unnecessary sound. The use of river crossings also had its own strict rules and time-tested secrets. Well-known crossings were carefully avoided, as there could be hidden ambushes there. The group always sought out new, less obvious ways to cross the water barrier, known only to them. They relied on their visual memory and their ability to read the riverbed's contours downstream. This made their routes completely unpredictable to any organized pursuit. The river served not only to conceal physical traces, but also to eliminate odors. The cool water washed the sweat from the bodies of the warriors and horses after a strenuous departure from camp. This deprived the enemy's hunting dogs of the ability to pick up a scent on the opposite bank. The water acted as an ideal filter, erasing the group's identity. They emerged from the river completely refreshed, ready for the long journey home. This approach to using water resources demonstrates the deep ecological thinking of indigenous peoples. They did not fight nature, but integrated its laws into their complex tactics. The river was their ally, their shield, and their path, ensuring safety in the most critical situations. In the next chapter, you will learn how they use the unevenness of the terrain to completely blend into the landscape. Leaving the safety of the riverbed, these masters of stealth face the challenges of open terrain. The plains only appear at first glance to be completely flat and easily visible in all directions. In reality, this landscape is crisscrossed by countless ravines, dry creek beds, and small depressions. The Comanches possessed a phenomenal ability to read this micro-relief and use it for movement. They could lead a group of horses across the open steppe so that no one would notice their presence. The main rule for daytime or pre-dawn travel was to avoid any high ground. Reaching the crest of a hill instantly turned the silhouette of a man and horse into a perfect target against the sky. The route was always laid out along the bottoms of deep ravines and winding gullies, hidden from direct view. The warriors moved in a serpentine formation, following the natural curves of the terrain and blending into the landscape. This required perfect knowledge of the terrain and excellent spatial awareness. Shadows played a key role in the strategy of disappearing into the landscape during the day or at dusk. The sun on the plains creates sharp contrasts, and the masters knew how to hide in the dark areas. They moved along the steep slopes of canyons, constantly remaining in deep shadow. If the shadow shifted, the group changed course to always remain in the protective darkness. Sunlight was their main enemy, and shadow was their faithful and reliable shelter. The vegetation of the plains was also used as a powerful tool for natural camouflage. Thickets of tall grass, wormwood bushes, and solitary trees created an excellent visual screen. The warriors crouched against the backs of their horses, making them blend in with the tall bushes. If danger appeared on the horizon, the group would instantly freeze among the vegetation. A motionless object, properly integrated into the landscape, became completely invisible to the eye. Dust kicked up by horses' hooves was always a serious problem during a rapid retreat. To minimize this revealing factor, areas with thick turf or moist soil were chosen. Moving across rocky plateaus also prevented the appearance of a telltale dust cloud. If it was impossible to avoid a dusty area, the group would stretch out into a long line. This prevented the dust from accumulating into a single large column visible from a distance. The skill of using the terrain required constant and intense scanning of the horizon. The Comanches were adept at noticing the slightest changes in the landscape's geometry, revealing hidden observers. Their peripheral vision was honed to the limit, detecting any movement at great distances. Upon spotting a threat, they immediately sought out the nearest depression and took cover in it. This speed of reaction saved lives and preserved valuable booty during long treks. Moving in conditions of limited visibility, such as fog or a dust storm, offered advantages. At such times, the warriors could afford to move faster and along more direct paths. Nature itself drew the curtain, hiding their movements from prying eyes. However, this required perfect spatial orientation, as visual landmarks disappeared. Their built-in internal compass helped them stay on course even in a solid white haze. Rest stops during the march were organized only in the most secluded and sheltered places. These could be deep caves, dense thickets at the bottom of a canyon, or dense forest strips. The group never set up camp in open terrain where they could be caught off guard. The resting place always had several routes for a covert retreat in case of sudden discovery. Safety while sleeping was ensured by a strict system of sentries and perfect discipline. The ability to read the landscape and blend into it was not innate, but acquired. This skill was developed through many years of observation and training in harsh conditions. The plain was an open book to them, one they could read better than anyone else. They thought in terms of shadows, depressions, and horizon lines, creating the perfect path. This spatial intelligence made them unrivaled masters of stealthy movement. The ability to find the right path in pitch darkness was one of the main secrets of their success. When the moon was hidden behind thick clouds, the plain turned into a completely black and indistinguishable space. For an ordinary person, this meant a complete loss of orientation and the inability to move forward. But the masters of stealth used these conditions as the ideal time for the quickest retreat. Their system of night navigation was based on a deep knowledge of astronomy and a phenomenal memory. The starry sky served as a giant, infallible map spread out above their heads. The Comanches knew the locations of the major constellations and could use them to determine the cardinal directions. They navigated not only by the North Star, but also by the movement of other celestial bodies. This allowed them to chart precise routes even when part of the sky was obscured by clouds. Knowledge of the star paths was passed down by word of mouth as the tribe's greatest treasure. When the sky was completely overcast, their perfect spatial memory came to the rescue. Warriors memorized the route even while en route to their destination, committing every feature of the terrain to memory. They created a three-dimensional mental map of the area, relying on tactile sensations and sounds. The direction of the land slope, the nature of the soil beneath their feet, all of this served as reliable landmarks. This ability to move by memory allowed them to maintain high speed in absolute darkness. The direction of prevailing winds was also an important tool for nighttime navigation on the plains. Knowing where the constant seasonal wind blew from, the warriors could adjust their course. They felt the air current on their skin and used it as an invisible compass. If the wind changed, they checked their direction against other available natural landmarks. This multi-layered verification system eliminated the possibility of a serious error in route selection. Plants and trees provided additional clues for the experienced night traveler. Warriors knew which side of the trunks had rougher bark or was covered in moss. They could identify a shrub by touch and recall the characteristics of its growth in that region. These minute details helped them confirm their location across a vast territory. Nature spoke to them in a language of textures and shapes hidden from view. At night, their hearing sharpened and took over some of the functions of sight. The sound of a distant waterfall, the rustle of a certain type of grass, or the echo from the canyon walls served as beacons. An experienced warrior could determine the distance to an obstacle by the change in the acoustics of their footsteps. They moved like bats, using the soundscape to chart their course. This required perfect silence within the group and maximum concentration. Organizing the column's movement in the dark also had its own specific rules. The most experienced navigator, possessing the best night vision and intuition, always led the way. The rest moved strictly in single file, not deviating from their assigned path by even a single step. The distance between people and horses was kept to a minimum so as not to lose contact in the dark. In the event of a stop, a signal was passed along the chain with a simple touch of the hand. A special technique of defocused vision helped them see better in low-light conditions. Instead of straining to see into the darkness, they looked as if through objects, using their peripheral vision. This allowed the eye's receptors to detect even the faintest light sources. Thanks to this, the silhouettes of hills and trees became distinguishable against the night sky. This physiological adaptation was the result of constant practice in night marches. Confidence in their navigational skills allowed them to make daring night marches. They could cover enormous distances in a single night, moving far away from their pursuers. In the morning, the enemy would find an empty camp and a complete absence of tracks within sight. The nighttime steppe was their home, where they knew every dark corner. Their ability to blend into the night made them the true masters of these boundless territories. Masking human scent was a critically important element when working with skittish animals. Horses have an incredibly keen sense of smell and are capable of detecting a stranger from a great distance. The Comanche employed a whole arsenal of natural remedies to deceive this sensitive sense. They actively used local flora, rubbing their bodies with the juice of wormwood or wild mint. These pungent plant aromas reliably masked the distinctive scent of the human body and sweat. Using mud and clay from local water sources was also standard practice before a raid. The mud not only cooled the skin, but also created a dense barrier that trapped odors inside. As it dried, it formed a thin crust that provided additional protection against insects. This method was particularly effective, as the smell of river silt was familiar to horses. A person covered in such clay was perceived by the animals as part of the natural landscape. Fires lit before departure were made only from specific types of dry wood that did not produce acrid smoke. Clothing was thoroughly aired out or exposed to the smoke of plants growing near the target. This created the effect of a familiar scent that did not alarm guards or animals. Warriors avoided eating strongly scented foods for several days before an operation. Every detail was carefully considered to eliminate even the slightest chance of failure due to an accidental scent. Silhouette camouflage was no less important than working with scents and sounds. The classic vertical outline of a walking person instantly draws attention on a flat plane. Therefore, warriors always moved in a deep crouch or crawled across open areas. They tried to give their bodies shapeless outlines resembling a boulder or a bush. This visual deconstruction of the human figure disrupted the centuries' habitual patterns of perception. Clothing also served as an important element of visual camouflage at night and at dusk. Skins in neutral, earthy tones were used, devoid of any bright decorations or contrasting patterns. Often, the edges of the clothing were intentionally made uneven to blur the sharp lines of the figure. A coyote or wolf pelt draped over the shoulders could completely alter a warrior's silhouette. From a distance, such a silhouette was mistaken for an ordinary wild animal posing no threat. When approaching horses, warriors often imitated the movements and postures of other herbivores. They might sway slowly, mimicking an animal grazing on grass, so as not to startle their target. The smoothness and rhythm of these movements had a calming effect on the horses in the corral. Abrupt gestures and straight-line movements were completely excluded from their repertoire. This was a body language understood by nature and designed to lull any observer into a false sense of security. Working with the background was another secret to achieving perfect visual blending into the environment. The masters never crossed light patches of ground if there was an opportunity to walk on dark ones. They used the unevenness of the ground, bushes and shadows from the clouds to constantly obscure their silhouette. As they moved, they seemed to flow from one dark area to another, avoiding illuminated spots. This created the illusion of flickering, where an object would appear and then vanish instantly. Even the position of the head and arms was strictly controlled during stealthy movement. A lowered head concealed the fair skin of the face and hid the glare from the whites of the eyes. The arms were pressed against the body so as not to create additional moving parts on the sides of the torso. A compact, collected posture minimized the area of visual contact with the surroundings. The warrior became a mass of concentrated energy, invisible until the very moment of the throw. These methods required tremendous physical endurance and flexibility of the entire body. The ability to remain in an uncomfortable position for hours without a single movement was a sign of the highest mastery. From childhood, the Comanche trained these skills through complex games and tests of patience. Only those who could achieve complete control over their bodies were allowed to participate in difficult raids. Their art of camouflage was based on a deep understanding of the psychology and physiology of perception. The final miles before their home camp were always the most emotionally charged for the entire group. Deadly dangers, nighttime treks, and the exhausting game of hide-and-seek with their pursuers were now behind them. Now they were leading their valuable prize, proof of their incredible skill and bravery. However, they could not relax until they crossed the invisible border of their safe territory. The group maintained battle formation in strict discipline right up until the very end of the long journey. Their approach to their borders was signaled with special codes to avoid causing a false alarm. Scouts moved ahead, informing the sentries of the group's successful return. The news spread quickly throughout the settlement, sparking widespread excitement and joyful anticipation. All members of the community came out to greet the heroes, lining up along the main entrance to the camp. It was a moment of triumph for which the warriors had risked their lives far from home. The display of the captured horses was an important part of the victor's homecoming ritual. The steeds were paraded in a circle so that everyone could appreciate the quality and beauty of the trophies. The finest animals drew admiration and confirmed the high status of those who had managed to capture them. Success was measured not only by quantity, but also by the quality of the spoils brought back from the enemy camp. The more difficult the defense, the higher the spoils were valued in the eyes of the respected elders. The warriors who participated in the raid accepted congratulations with dignity and restrained pride. They did not boast of their exploits immediately, but waited for the evening gathering around the main campfire. It was there in a solemn atmosphere that the group leader recounted the operation in detail. Every successful decision, every ruse, and every obstacle overcome was described in full detail. These stories served as a tactical manual for the younger generation of future scouts. Particular attention in the stories was paid to the moment of leaving a mark of presence in the enemy camp. This act commanded the greatest respect, as it demonstrated fearlessness and complete mastery of the situation. The listeners held their breath as they listened to stories of how a warrior had cut a rope right under a guard's nose. These moments became legends that were passed down and embellished over time. The group's prestige soared to unattainable heights after such verified stories. The captured horses quickly became part of the community and were distributed according to strict rules. A portion of the spoils was given to the elders and to the families who needed help the most. This gesture of generosity further strengthened the authority of the successful hunters within their tribe. The ability not only to obtain, but also to wisely manage the spoils characterized a true leader. A warrior's glory always went hand in hand with his concern for the well-being of his fellow tribesmen. A successful raid also served as a powerful deterrent to potential aggressors from other tribes. Rumors of elusive groups spread quickly across the plains, creating an aura of invincibility. Neighbors understood that they were dealing with an enemy capable of striking out of nowhere at any moment. This psychological projection of power ensured the safety of the entire settlement for a long time. Their art of stealth functioned as an invisible shield, protecting the borders of their territory. The secrets of their craftsmanship continue to fascinate modern researchers and military experts. What seemed like primitive magic was, in fact, an extremely complex system of knowledge about nature. They used wind, water, and terrain with mathematical precision and the intuition of a predator. Their methods proved that perfect camouflage and silence are often more effective than brute force. The history of the Great Plains has forever remembered these masters of the shadows, capable of vanishing into the night. This incredible phenomenon of horse stealing as an art form is a unique chapter in North American history. It reveals humanity's deep connection with nature and its ability to adapt to the harshest conditions. Their legacy is a lesson in endurance, observation, and perfect control of one's own body. What topics about the lives of North America's indigenous peoples would you like to see in future videos? Share your suggestions in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes.